So whenever you're ready.
If this is all right, Craig, I'll go through a little bit about the bonds. I won't talk about specifics to the project because other than knowing that it's for roads and roads only, that's what Craig will be able to go into. My name is Mark McLiney. I'm with Samco Capital Markets. We are the financial advisor to the city in their effort to borrow money. We'll be, if the election is successful, which will be at your all's direction when you all vote, but if there's 51% of the voters approve the bond issue, we will be tasked with going out and raising the $800,000. It is a bond that is going to be supported by ad valorem taxes. It will be added to the property taxes of the city to make bond payments. The plan, and it is a plan, and there can be deviations from it, but it's very likely to be a 15-year loan, and I will use the word loan as a bond. They're one and the same. So it will be a 15-year bond, payable, as I said, from ad valorem taxes. When your tax bill goes out, it will include the maintenance and operation tax of the city plus the debt service tax. In addition to that tax, you'll have the school district tax, the county tax, and any other taxing district that you may belong to. The city tax will be one of the lower taxes, but it will be combined with your current, roughly speaking, 23-cent M&O tax. It looks like it would take about 4.5 cents to cover the bond's annual debt service. So how does that 4.5 cent actually affect a homeowner or a property owner, and what would that mean as far as taxes to you? Based on a $100,000 valued property after all of the exemptions, it's estimated that if the tax rate's 4.5 cents, it would be $45 a year in additional taxes. If the value of the property is $80,000, again, this is after exemptions. I had it written down, I think it was $35. And it's $25 if it is $60,000. If the value after exemptions is larger, then it will be greater than $45. And that would be basically what it would cost each year for 15 years to do the projects. And on a global view, before I turn it to Craig, the projects are road and street and anything incidental to that. So it is a road project. It is not improvements to a city hall. It's not improvements to a utility system. It's not improvements to the parks. It is roads. You might see in the wording, and it says also, and utility system relocation. We don't want, if there is a water line underneath a road, we want to make that or move that out so that 5 years from now, we're not cutting up a new road to replace a broken water main. So other than water or a sewer line, water line that is going to be needed to be moved due to construction of a road, this is only going to be used for the roads. And so that's kind of the quick overview of the bonds. The bond process, if it's successful in November, we will start working on this and likely sell this in the late spring or early summer, with the first payment in fiscal year 2021, so it won't be on your tax bill until this time next year. Right now, you should be receiving tax bills at home. It would be on next year's tax bill. And again, it would run for 15 years. So that's just a quick overview of the bonds, the process, what we're going to do, when we would sell them, and how long it would be payable, and what it would cost, roughly speaking, to households. So to talk about the projects, I'll turn it to Craig, and then I guess we'll answer any questions that you may have.
All right, good evening. Some of you were here last time that we talked about this, and as I told you then, I am not the direct person that deals with Mayor Ball. The person in our office that does that had a prior commitment, so I am filling in for him again on this. I did not put together this report. And I'll tell you basically what we're talking about here. This is a street maintenance project. It's not a rebuild of any streets. It will be, the proposed project is to resurface the streets with a 2-course chip seal. Now what that is, the first course, you come in with a layer of liquid asphalt, lay the asphalt down. Right behind that, you have a truck with rock, a base layer of rock that's about, that layer is gonna be about an inch, 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch in length, angular type rock. After that's down, the construction process is to come back and lay another layer of liquid asphalt, thicken that up, and the surface level rock is a little bit smaller. It's 3/8 inch to a 1/2 inch. In that process, if there's potholes or any places along the street that need to be repaired, base failures or anything, I just got through driving the streets. I noticed there's some potholes, not too terribly many. I didn't see too many base failures, but all those defects would be repaired prior to the 2-course surface treatment going down. That's really all I have to talk about what the streets are gonna be. And I can answer any questions that anybody may have, if Mayor Ball is ready to do so.
Let me start with John Crickmer.
There's some concern in the language that I consider to be boilerplate about sidewalks and the utilities that was mentioned. We're not getting sidewalks, correct? We're not extending the road to a new subdivision or anything like that, correct?
No, there's been no mention of sidewalk or utility relocations. This is a basic resurfacing job of
existing
selected streets.
One more.
You are correct, though. The boilerplate language for Proposition A says $800,000 for the purpose of making permanent public improvements or other public purposes, designing, acquiring, constructing, renovating, improving, upgrading, updating, and equipping city street, curb, gutter, and sidewalk improvements, demolition, repair, rebuilding existing streets. That's the boilerplate language that is thrown in for City of San Antonio that does curbs. We're not doing curbs. That does sidewalks when they do roads. I'm not the bond lawyer. This is the bond lawyer language for street improvements, and it is the boilerplate. The project is streets.
I have one more question, a follow-up. As far as the follow-away, the chip off on the edges of the pavement, I've noticed quite a bit of that recently. Is there anything to address that or improve that situation?
Not with this project, no, sir. That's something that's common, everyday thing with chip seal streets. The trash trucks get over there, the mail trucks get over there, people parking on the street. It's just gonna wear out the edges, and that's where you lose your road, when you have chip seal streets. I lived in the subdivision for 15 years that had this, so I'm perfectly aware of how that works, and I've lived with the situation myself. Yes, sir, the gentleman in the blue hat.
Mm-hmm.
Just turn this around so I can prop myself up. My name is James Clement. In January be 32 years that I've lived here. I seen the first paved street go in, and then I saw the chip seal go in. Actually, 2 pebble, washed gravel pebble. It didn't hold up. Now Waterwood Pass was the first one to have chip seal. Folks, that street out there is about 15 years old. Look at this condition of it, and then go over to New Mathis Road. New Mathis Road is a wreck. That's a terrible surface that's on there, and if you don't understand what's gonna happen if this bond issue is not passed, but that's a different story right now, because we're discussing the content of what will be done. There's no doubt, but what chip seal is a good process. As a matter of fact, for the type of road, you're right, it's an excellent process. And when you think about some of the wording that was in the first a proposal on this thing, sidewalks were mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, take in consideration, if you have sidewalks, you must have curbs. If you have curbs, you must have drainage ditches. No, you don't, because the drainage ditches go away, and you're gonna have catch basins built underneath the sidewalks and underneath your street. You wanna talk about cost? Now dig into your pocket for that. But when you talk about 4 cents, 4 cents is nothing. When I was the mayor, I proposed the first year 0 to 35 cents. 0. And we opted not to go with 35 cents, we went with 0. And to this date, 23 point something cents is a gift from heaven. Because you can, San Antonio's right across the road over here, it's there. How about almost 60 cents per 100, as opposed to our 23? Get your hats on, get your heads screwed on right, and observe what's going on. This is not a project to make anybody any money. It's to improve what you have here. It's to improve. And I heard all the moaning and groaning about the potholes and so forth that were being made in the streets. I don't care what kind of traffic you got on them, whether it's 18-wheelers or people's pickups or my little Honda. Doesn't make any difference. Everybody has to suffer the damage to their vehicles from potholes. So let's get on base. It has to be done. It's one of those things to be a city. And you could have, at this time, been under a management company. This I know for a fact. Now, if you think it's costing you money, get under a management company for what you've got. So all I can say is, get with it. Understand that your city council, 5 people and a mayor, sit behind that table twice a month, trying to do the best for this community. And when people say, no, we don't need that, let's use the money for something else. Sorry, this is the best option you have right now. And it's the very first bond issue to try to be floated in this city. At one time, I was opposed to having any bond issue until you had $500,000 in your reserve funding. We're at that point now where we have to do what we have to do. And I'm in agreement with the type of material that you're bringing in here. And as far as the edge, I've experienced the edge falling apart, especially where the postman has to curve in to everybody's mailbox. That part of the edge of the roadway is going away in front of every house. So, please, use common sense, use your heads. And there's a lot of smart people out here, a lot of smart people. But they have to look at everything objectively and be subjective about their thought processes. So, please, okay, the gray matter has to get warm, okay? Don't let it sit and get cold. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Out of all these 800,000, how many miles is that all it entails?
How many miles
Well, yeah,
of roadway is
everything's gonna be
proposed?
done? in
Like 5.5 miles.
5.5 miles?
Yeah, I think that's about.
And that's about 20% of the roads in the city.
So 20% is gonna be
Yeah,
done?
It's about
5.7
6, I came up with
miles.
about 6 miles, but
So
yes.
not everything's gonna be done?
Not with this
No.
bond, no.
5.7 miles, and I believe you have 29.5 center line miles of roadway in the city.
So if I live on a bad road and I don't get get that road done, I'm still gonna be paying and nothing's gonna be done on that road?
Yes.
Wow.
I pay
I'm opposed to that.
taxes and I don't have any kids in the school.
And that's a very good example.
Well, but why, I thought it was 800,000 for everything.
No, that amount of money would not cover the full mileage of roads you have in the city.
Again, if I'm on a bad road and I'm gonna be paying taxes for a road that wasn't on my street, that's not right.
That's part of living in the city.
Well,
Good.
not cool.
Can I ask?
And it's for, I mean, you talking about, if you wanna look at it that way, look at, fire service, any kind of emergency services that you pay taxes for. It's there when you need it. Now, at some point in time, I mean, I'm speaking for the future, whatever the city council might decide for future years to do additional maintenance to the city. And typically, what I would like to do, what I've always recommended to cities that I've consulted with, is to divide up and decide how often do you wanna repave a street. So you
Well,
decide,
okay, on my
hang on, let me
street,
finish,
23
please,
years.
let me finish.
Okay.
So, every 10 years, every 12 years, you wanna be repaving a street, which is a pretty reasonable thing to do with chip and seal streets. So say, let's just say 10 miles, so every year, I would propose to the city this city to repave about 3 miles a year. And that's something that you could budget real easy. I don't know what that budget might be, I mean, I could figure it out if I put pen to pad. But something that you would do on a yearly, do so much on a yearly basis, where it comes around to the every 10th year, you're gonna get your street repaved.
Sir, what street do you live on?
On Dragon Rock?
It's getting done, it's in the list.
Dragon Rock's in one of the,
Yeah, but even if I didn't live there, I still want my other, you know, how many miles is it all until like everything's in the green?
our city
Or
has,
city.
our city has
Oh,
29.5
miles, center line miles,
29 miles, and how much is gonna be done?
5.7. And you wouldn't wanna do all your streets in one year, I mean, that's just, because you wanna spread that cost out over several years, like I said, if you're spreading it out over 10 years, so every 10 years, you're touching the street again with a new surface or rebuilding it or whatever the road requires to bring back to reasonable condition. You're always gonna have poor streets, you're always gonna have excellent streets. And your street program's gonna run the gamut of every score you can give it. Yes, sir, the blue shirt.
Yes, sir, I've heard more than one time that, this road repair is gonna last 7 years. And it seems that the indication is that after 7 years, the roads are gonna disappear. Would you address that, please?
In this report, it says the lifespan is, for that surface is gonna be 6 to 8 years. And then at that point in time, you may wanna come back and put another, single course treatment over the top of that.
So,
For New Mathis Road, yeah, that may be about right. For the roads that are less traveled, more local, New Mathis is what we would call a collector street. So everybody's coming to New Mathis, and it's one of the heavier traveled streets. New Mathis, Waterwood Pass, those couple of streets. Everybody's coming to those streets, so it's gonna see more traffic. So it's gonna deteriorate in a shorter amount of time. The local streets that we were talking about, like, Lost Hills, Flat River, Restless, all those streets have fewer people living on them. There's not any cut-through traffic on those streets, so those will last a lot longer. Could last up to 12, 15 years, pretty easy, I would say.
so New Mathis Road after 7 years or 5 years will need a single course of sealant,
It could, yes.
rather than new rock and, the hot asphalt and the rock and then the chip seal.
Well, what you would probably do at that, however long it takes for that road to deteriorate, and what's gonna happen when a chip seal road deteriorates is that the rock just keeps sinking in to the asphalt, and the road starts getting slick and shiny. At that point in time, you'd come back and put in another course down, you put another layer of liquid asphalt and another layer of rock on top of that.
So then the people that are saying the streets are gonna be gone in 7 years
No,
might be
how old are the streets
exaggerating
now?
or mistaken.
I just got through driving all these streets.
Yes,
And-
sir.
And they're in pretty good condition for the age I expect that they are.
The, other than New Mathis, which is really deteriorated since it's been opened as a collector road.
How long has it been open?
2 years, 3
2
years?
Okay,
Uh,
that's good to know.
Yeah, it was at the end of the subdivision, with very little traffic, and once they opened it up, it's become a main feeder.
Okay, what was the main feeder before?
Waterwood Pass.
Okay,
And just so you know, I was the guy that for 2 years built potholes and,
I remember that, you told me that last time.
so I'm about familiar with all 29 and a half of those miles.
Okay.
And if a person has a pothole in front of their house, if you call City Hall, they schedule to have that street repaired. Thank you, Chris.
Are you, 6 to 8 years, it sounds kind of short because I've lived out here for over 20 years and my street's never been paved and it's still good. So it just seems like 6 to 8 years, it's kind of a short time.
I would agree.
We have a lot more people now, a lot more people than when we first moved here.
Oh, yeah, I know, but it just seems like a road
And
would
you
last
work
longer
hard.
than 6 to 8 years.
6 to 8 years is probably pretty typical across the state, but you're talking about roads on black clay soil that's gonna swell and gonna move around a lot. You folks are sitting on sandy soil, drains well. Everything I saw looked pretty good out there today. Yes, sir.
Is the 6 to 8 year time frame considering zero maintenance in between?
There's really not a whole lot of maintenance you can do on a chip and seal road. So,
Pothole repair or anything like
just,
that?
yeah, if you get potholes that open up, yes, that's about the only thing you would do.
So could that extend the lifetime of the road?
Yeah, to a degree, yeah. Somebody over here. Yes.
So is it safe to say that the worst of the roads is what's going to be addressed first, not just
Based on this report, yes.
the worst of the,
I did not do the windshield evaluation of that, so
but it makes sense to do the worst first?
absolutely. Yes, sir.
everybody's information, I've been listening to this. Waterwood Pass was the first paved road. And it was put in, excuse me, it was put in 1988. That's when Waterwood Pass was paved with pebbles, okay? Hot oil and pebbles. And a few years later, Waterwood Development Company came in and covered it again with hot oil and pebbles. And then the county accepted the road for their repair. It was a county road. And they went in and came in and hot oiled it and chip sealed it. And if you wanna know how long chip seal will last, go down Waterwood Pass. There's very, very few holes you'll find in that road. And it's held up, and it was the main road here for 15 years. It was the main road for 15 years. And it's survived. It's survived. So, I would say only the streets that use heavy traffic are the ones that are gonna wear out fastest. Okay? And that's reasonable. And there's a lot of things you can't stop from driving on your roads, and some you can, some you can't. But the thing is, just understand usage is the thing that's going to cause your roads to deteriorate. And go to San Antonio and go down east-south cross from Interstate 37 down to South Presa and see what you've got there. About every 5 to 7 years, they have to dig up the base and replace the base on the road. So, thank you for what we've got. We've got excellent service, excellent roads, and the repairs have been minimal by comparison, so.
So I do have a question because this has been asked of me. You mentioned that the bond is paid for through ad valorem taxes. So ad valorem taxes is your property tax, valuation on your property tax. I don't know how it would happen, but the question has come up, what if the city defaults on that payment?
Then the bondholders will force the city to raise taxes to cover the debt. You have a when the voters authorize a general obligation bond, you are and city council eventually sells those bonds. So there's still two steps. The voters have to approve it and the city council has to sell the bonds. When you do that, because they are voter approved bonds, you give the lender a pledge of ad valorem taxes. And what that means is you will be forced to raise, if your city council says, we are not going to pay these bonds, we're just not going to, the courts would come in because you voted and approved the bonds, they would force you to raise taxes sufficient to cover the annual debt service payments. So the only way that you all would default is if the city council said, we're not setting a tax rate sufficient to cover this, and you don't have other monies, then the bondholders will come in and say, you said in a bond election, you approved the bond election, that you would raise taxes, the courts would force you to raise taxes sufficient to cover the annual bond payment, which is roughly 4.5 cents.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Question. Now, would that give Bear County appraisal district to come out and reappraise everything?
This Bear County Appraisal District is completely autonomous to this process. They have an obligation, and you can argue with them, because I certainly argue with them, but they have their obligation is to evaluate the values of homes, notwithstanding anything the city council, the city, the county does. It is the obligation of the appraisal district to value each property in the county, and has no relation to bonds or what the council is doing.
Okay. The reason why I ask that is because if they come out, say, I've got two properties, they reappraise them for higher than what they are right now, would that raise my?
That's actually a great question. Over the last 4 years, the taxable value of the city in order has increased 7.18%, 11%, 14.5%, and this last year it was up 18.82%. That's from the appraisal district. That's just the values of all the properties in the community, in the city limits. Next year, the appraisal district comes out and reevaluates additional properties, and you get another 15% increase. And let's just say it's across the board on everybody. So we're not saying it's your house or your two properties, it's across the board. You cannot set your INS tax rate higher than what your revenue requirement is. So if you're at 4.5 cents tax rate and we get a 20% increase in taxable values, by law, your INS tax rate has to go down. You can't, and we won't keep it at 4.5 cents. If valuation keeps increasing, it will be forced to go down. And in my numbers that I ran, and I did not run fast growth. I did 5% for 3 years and 3% growth for 2 years and 0 growth thereafter. And under that scenario, by 2025, that 4.5 cent tax rate has been reduced to 3.5. So if you get a 15% increase next year, then that 4.5 cent will come down, or right now it's set about 4.6. I'm trying to be conservative. It will keep forcing its way down, and in 15 years, at the end, right now it's showing about 3.5 cents. So all of that, and that's not using growth after 5 years. Now, let's say you're the only property that goes up. Everybody else stays the exact same. Your property goes up by 15%, and everybody else stays the same. Well, your property is not going to force much growth for the whole city. You would see your tax rate go up by 15%. So that means your 4.5 cents might be 4.75 cents. But if the whole community, like the last 4 years, grows like it has, your INS tax rate has to go down. The city cannot raise money on the INS tax to make more than what the bond payment is. Now, there is a small little, because it's late collections, there'll be a little bit of surplus, but you can't keep collecting at 4.5 cents if it only takes 4 cents to cover.
Mhm.
And that is tax law.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a question about, who selects the contractor for the paving? And do they have a completion bond and a warranty on their work?
The process would be putting the job out to bid once all the engineering and plans have been made. Put the job out to bid. There's 2 different ways that the city can procure that work. They can do a traditional low bid contract, which everybody's familiar with. The new law allows the city to do a best value bid and set some criteria. Look at work history. There's certain items in the law you can add to it, but you got to put it in the document so the contractors know what they're up against. We've been doing that. IMNS has been doing that with a few other cities. I've done it with Kirby and Floresville, and some other people in my office have done it too. We met with pretty reasonable success on scoring that. So there's options. About the bonding, we include 3 different types of bonds. One's a payment bond, one's a performance bond, and one's a maintenance and warranty bond. And typically what we, for the maintenance and warranty, we like to do 2 years on that. So if there's any defects, potholes, cracking, whatever, we'll have the contractor come back out and do that work. Fix the defects that are in the work. If they don't come back and do that at our request, then we cash in, we go against their bond to have that work done.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's me again. What I want to impress upon everybody, you get into the taxing here just now. I see there's a lot of smart people in this room, because I know some of them. When you turn over and look at the back of your tax form that you get in the mail, you have an additional form there. You can protest your taxes, your property. I heard people talking about property
Protest
values.
property evaluations.
They tax you 2 ways. They tax you on the dirt, and they tax you on the improvements. And this past year, my dirt went up 100%. The dirt went up 100%. But I live in a mobile home. Chattel mortgage. I haven't had a mortgage now since 2000. But, you can protest your taxes, and believe me, they will not move on the improvements. They will not move on the improvements. Correction. They will move on the improvements, but they won't move on the dirt. Because they're saying, they pointed it out to me, that everywhere in this county, they're having a hard time, people are buying. They're buying like crazy. But the real estate agents keep telling people, well, your property's worth $15,000 more than you think it's worth, okay? So it sells for more money. The tax assessor, the appraiser knows that. And that goes against you. So remember, use that form. It takes you a half an hour when you have an appointment to see if you can talk them people into giving you some. And I did it again this year, and I have been doing it now for about 25 years. And if you live in a mobile home depreciates at 3% per year, folks. And of course, after so many years, like me, you live in diminishing return, because you can only take 3% off the value each year, what's remaining on it. So, please, do what's prudent for you to exist in this community, because they had this past year such an influx of people wanting to get their tax base changed. They felt the pinch, finally. So do it. Do it. Don't sit there and say, oh God, the taxes are going up. Yeah, the taxes are going up.
And what was the question, sir?
Huh?
What was the question for them?
This is an open forum. It doesn't necessarily have to be a question.
Oh, I thought we were gonna.
It doesn't necessarily have to be for an open forum. Thank you very much, folks, for your attention.
I have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Whenever you do, if you go through this process, what's the warranty from y'all to the city?
The warranty for
the work you're gonna be doing? Cause it's gonna be for the contract.
the contractor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically workmanship and defects of the work.
And that's gonna be like, if you resurface the road, this road's gonna be like, for how long, for as long?
Typically 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
And then
very
after-
typical for public works construction.
So after 2 years, and then the road starts deteriorating, probably
6, 7 years, you have to come back, right, and for the maintenance to go.
Yes,
Then we're gonna have to go with another fund, and
possibly.
and that one, but that will be on top of the one we already getting. And then probably 6, 7 years from there, we're gonna get another bond to cover and keep repairing the road. So by the time we finish 25, how many miles you say in the city?
25, 29 and a half
We'll probably
miles.
be like, $5, $6, $7 million and the road,
Yeah. I mean, I think, I would hope the city.
because everything adds up, right, the interest rate, the bond and everything, so practically we're gonna be in debt for the rest of our life.
Well, that, I can't say what the city would do in the future as far as funding maintenance of your roads.
Yeah.
That's not for me to speculate.
And you may have new businesses come in, bring in sales tax, the city councils may have budget, they may earmark part of the annual budget to cover debt service, they may earmark part of the annual debt service to make road maintenance, make those repairs, but unfortunately, and I live in a city too,
Right.
unfortunately, every city, once you start progressing, will have debt. And that debt will be there for the rest of it. That bond may be paid off, but a new bond will come in.
Exactly,
And-
that's
and-
the point, you see, the point is that we just gonna be getting another bond on top of another one, so the tax is gonna be going
Well,
up.
not
and up and up.
necessarily, because as the last 4 years has shown, you've grown 15%. If you would've issued these bonds in 2010, and you wanted to issue a new bond right now, there'd been no tax increase, cause you grew 15% for 4 years in a row.
Okay.
So all of a sudden, if you continue to grow and you have more people coming in, more people are paying for it, and so that tax rate, as I was saying, has to go down. Has to. You cannot keep it at 4.5 cents if you only need 2.5 cents. So perhaps it works its way down to 2.5 cents, and then the city council says, well, we wanna do another project, takes it to the voters, and then the voters say, yes, we approve it, and now that tax rate goes back to 4.5 cents. So it was at 4.5 cents, it goes down by law, because the valuation increased, you have more people moving in, more taxable value, it's moved down to 2.5 cents, and now you, as the voters, who know what's needed in the community, vote, yes, we wanna do another project, and it takes the tax rate back to 4.5. So it's the same, it doesn't mean if you have a 4.5 cent tax rate this year, and 5 years from now you do another bond, it means another 4.5 cents, and then 5 years later it means another 4.5 cents. You could be still below the tax rate. I've worked with fast-growing cities that the tax rate for City of Schertz is lower now than it was 20 years ago.
And how big is church?
Well, it was when I first started working with them 30 years ago, it was about 3,500 people. And now it's about 45.
Dimension on the city.
I'm talking, the city limits
Yeah.
was about 3,500 people in Schertz, and now it is pushing 35 or 40,000 people.
On that linear,
Oh, I don't know the street length, but it was a small community that kept getting bigger and bigger.
because everything sounds good when we discuss it, or whatever, put it in place. But you see, by the way it looks right now, we have 25 point some miles to be resurfaced. But we, like, everybody wants to go, right, fix every little street, every road. Okay. We upside down on this deal here. It's gonna be like, for example, 25 miles, to do, so much, $800,000. And then, you brought up a good point a little while ago when you said, well, there's gonna be more business coming into the city. But you see, this city would have been incorporated because the money is not here to operate like a big city. It's not here. The people that we live here, they just live in paycheck to paycheck. It just, the business is not here to support those people.
One of the beautiful things about doing what your council has called an election is so that collectively, your residents, your neighbors, your friends can decide if this is what they want. Cause there's
Right.
some people that may disagree with you and say, I would rather give up that $45 a year and get some better roads. Because and some will say, I can't afford it. But that's why we're trying to do a simple voted bond so that the community collectively makes a decision collectively. And some people are gonna be unhappy with it. Some people are gonna be very happy with it. Well, I don't know what the results will be.
Yeah, and then I agree with the gentleman on the back road over there where he's saying, well, what if my street is not fixed, and then I'm gonna be paying for somebody else? You know, I mean, and there's a lot of people on that situation. You know, we're gonna be paying for some fewer street, but not the one in front of my house.
Well,
So that's gonna be the burning, is why this bond, it can't pass.
Well, that's why we're taking it to the voters. The voters
Right.
will decide. I
Yeah.
won't decide.
Yeah, and-
The mayor won't decide. That's
Right.
one vote. The council members will have one vote. You collectively will be making the decision, and that's the beauty of it.
Right, and I hope this the election that people will speak up.
That's why it's been called.
Yes.
So that you can speak. It's why we've had 2 meetings, why the information's out there, why this is being filmed and put on circuit, so people can make
Right.
informed decisions.
No, I hear you.
Okay. Over here, this gentleman over here.
Mr. Fox?
You had
Oh,
your-
I'm sorry.
You had your hand up early.
You know, I was thinking, I've only worked here for 3 weeks, so I'm new to the game, but I wanna just share with you, as a former city manager in San Antonio, I've driven around most of the community. We're very fortunate to have what I would say is fairly, in fact, not more than fairly, very good infrastructure. If you put this into a long-term plan, if you will, you fix these community streets on a regular basis, you move it as we go. For example, in the city of San Antonio, they haven't raised their debt service rate in 20 years. And how they do that is that they keep that rate flat, and then they continue to issue as that debt service costs go down. And then you stack it back in and stack it back in. We just passed, what, 800 billion? A lot of money, $800 million. And there's no tax increase. So I think we have an opportunity here to start a strategic infrastructure improvement program. Yes, if tax values go up significantly, you could reduce the cost of taxes, if you will, or the rate of taxes, and still keep your general fund and debt service fund solid. If you allow streets to deteriorate and people basically refuse to pass the bond issue, then on an annual basis, you'll have to set up a road improvement and replacement fund. And that will cost more money as you go down the road. So, does that make any sense?
Yes.
Any questions about that?
I believe the city secretary had her hand up.
Kathy?
I'm sorry.
Did you have a question?
We were just talking about businesses, and I was just gonna say that, my thought is that the more attractive our city, the more businesses that might come in, which would then help sales tax.
How long has the Dollar General been there?
2 years.
Since 2016.
16.
Any idea on how much tax revenue that store generated for the city?
I don't know specific to that, but I do know that that store is the highest grossing store in their district.
So that's a tremendous benefit for your city, and with more growth, you'll get more tax benefit, and that'll help each one of you with the lower tax rate. Or if your tax rate stays the same, it'll be more revenue for the city to do projects. Yes, sir, the blue shirt.
Yes, sir, I'm gonna stand up so people can hear, because this gentleman is speaking, we could barely hear what was going on. So we're gonna do about 20% of the roads under this bond issue, and those are the 20% worst roads in the city. So if we're taking care of the worst ones, other streets won't we won't have to do 20% of the city per year. Is that a fair statement?
I will, yeah. That would be up to the city if they wanted to spend that kind of money to do it. I don't think it would be financially prudent to do so.
Thank you very much. Now, sir, I have a question for you. $100,000 property value, and you're saying about $46 per year
Yes, sir.
with no exemptions.
Well, that, I'm assuming the 100,000 is after exemptions.
Okay.
But
100,000
yes, I mean.
After exemptions or 100,000 with no exemptions, but $100,000 valuation, $46 for you. Okay. I'm hearing people saying I can't afford that. $46 per year on $100,000 valuation is less than 89 cents per week.
Yes.
Okay.
How many people drink Starbucks?
Okay.
And not me.
You know what?
Less than a cup of coffee anywhere in town, less than a Coca-Cola anywhere in town.
That's what I use.
Okay.
Let me just say something.
Or drinking
And
a soda at the
I'm
convenience
just
store.
saying, you know, because social media is a great thing, except when you wanna learn the truth about something. We're hearing about the great increase in taxes. And, you know, I'll pay $1 a week gladly not to have to dodge those stinking potholes on New Mathis Road that have several people. I destroyed a tire and a rim. Okay? How much is that? $125, $150? Realign the car for another $60? You know, the one lady lost an axle on New Mathis Road. You know, I'm saying it's short-sighted to say I can't afford 89 cents a week. I would rather dodge potholes from now on. And if we don't do maintenance on the streets, we're gonna be dodging potholes on every street.
Yes.
You know, I'm sorry, I'm the guy that was out there filling potholes for 2 years. I know whereof I speak.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna stand because I agree with him, because I've lived on New Mathis Road since, about 21 years now. I was there when they put the pavement on it. And just recently, after we became a city, I've noticed a lot of the potholes being taken care of. Before then, forget it. You had anywhere from a pothole from anywhere from 5 to 6 inches to 8 inches deep. Now, that's going down the middle of the road, the side of the road, and everything else. Hey, I'll pay 89 cents a day. I'd pay 89 cents a day to have it redone.
A week?
Yeah.
A week.
A week,
12 cents a day.
12 cents a day, you betcha.
One beer a week.
Yeah, I don't drink.
Now that we're on the subject, folks, 5 years ago, you were paying $180 a year to the developer of this community
And
for
getting
nothing.
Yeah, you didn't get
And all
anything for
them
your money.
potholes and stuff started under the developer.
Mhm.
Now, I was paying $180, never missed once for 31 years. Well, I can backtrack a little bit less than that. Never missed a payment. What did I get for it? I'm not getting near what you're gonna get for less than a cup of coffee. And when, I'll be honest with you. You know what my property taxes are this year? $85. $85. And that's a little bit higher than last year.
Is that per month?
No, $85 for the year.
Oh, for the year.
That's for the city of Sandy Oaks.
Oh, for the, okay.
That's for the city of Sandy Oaks.
Yeah.
Understand, if you get a $1,000 tax bill from the county, that includes the hospital district, the college district, the, everything that has to do with the county.
Yep.
And on top of that, you just got a healthy raise in your water bill if you don't know it.
Yeah.
So, and you're also paying for $1 billion improvement on the city of San Antonio sewer system because it's part of SAWS. Now, understand one thing, if you vote down this thing, this bond issue, and it has to be carried forward to another time before it's instituted, the damage to your roads, the wear and tear on your roads is going to be amplified. And it's not a linear change. I'll guarantee you it's gonna be logarithmic. Because once the damage starts, it's not a linear change and not a linear damage. It's a logarithmic change. Am I right? You're an engineer.
Yes, sir.
Okay? I do know a few things. I'm not the smartest turnip in the patch, but that's what you've got to look forward to. That's what you've got to look forward to. And if it's cared for and we do it properly, you're gonna benefit by it. And my dirt, as I told you earlier, went up 100%. And that, I used to own 2 lots side by side and sold one of them. And this year, my dirt went up 100%. 100%. But understand one thing, folks. Please, think about this stuff. Think about this stuff. I'm over 80 years old now. So, you know, it's, I understand it's coming to an end someday. You know, these things pass in your mind every once in a while. But
I do have a question for you. We talked earlier, or somebody mentioned earlier, about the edge of the road. And you indicated that that's not part of the design. Is that correct?
Rebuilding the edges of the road is not part of the design.
Okay.
It's not part of the proposed design at this time.
Okay. No, that's fine.
So, what we put together so far is just an idea.
Mhm.
There's not really, it's just based on experience, what we've looked at. We could come back and revamp this a little bit if the numbers worked out where we could do more linear, more miles of road, a longer stretch of road.
Mhm.
We would certainly want to try to do that. If the city wanted to take full advantage of their bonding capacity with the past election, we could do other things to improve the edges of the road.
And so, Mark, the reason I brought that question up is every year we budget about $225,000 for road repairs. We have committed this year's budget to a previously approved project, so we won't have that available for the next year, but the bond, as it passes, we won't even have that funding until the next year anyway. So the reason for bringing that question up is, could the city supplement work on the roads? So maybe the city funds the
Absolutely.
edge road, still leave what the bond is doing to do the surface treatment, but let the city supplement the bond in that capacity.
Legally, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
For design capacity, I would do a more full-blown design with the road with a shorter length, and then I wouldn't split that pot with the design of the road.
So
I
we
would do it
could, we
more
could
of a
focus
full-blown.
more on that, and then the city could take on another segment
Yeah.
somewhere else.
So, my thought would be, when we get down to really working the numbers and getting close and a tighter tighter idea of how much it'll cost, maybe go to what the city does is a reclamation. They'll pulver mix the road, existing road into the base material. That'll bring the road, and then blade it down. And that way we could more easily pave the full width of the road. Right now, if you do the chip seal, it's just gonna go over the edge.
Right.
And that's the worst part of doing chip seal.
Right.
But chip seal is the least expensive way to do road maintenance and improve surface.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
To Mrs. Ball's point about the edges being, deteriorating, the base, my question to you is that, if there was to fix the edges, would that keep the road from deteriorating any more than it was, or if it would have been maintained? But the erosion wouldn't have happened, the pieces wouldn't have been falling off. Most of the damage I've noticed is on the edges, it's not in the middle of the road, it's on the edges.
Right.
So it's just poor maintenance, that's what I perceive.
I would not agree with that.
Well, if they would, you don't think if they would've put base and packed it, that wouldn't have helped from keeping the road from chipping off? Is
It's
that
just a
what you're
product, it's just a product of chip seal
It's base,
streets.
so I'm talking about the edges.
Right.
Yeah,
So-
not the road itself,
Yeah.
the base.
So you lay the base down and then you lay this surface on top of
No,
it.
you're not getting me. No.
I am getting you,
I'm
just let
talking
me
about the
explain.
side of the road, not,
If you'll let me finish,
Go ahead.
you will understand what I'm talking about. So you lay the base down, the full width, and the base is typically about a foot outside of the edge of the pavement. When you put down the layers of asphalt, it's thicker. It stands up to the edge. Well, there's no structure that's holding that edge. So when the trash trucks ride over it, it just keeps shoving it off, and eventually that edge, it gets so weak that it cracks and it falls off. It happens, it's just something, it's a function of what happens with chip seal streets as they deteriorate.
so but if you,
The rainwater would erode it off, and it's just something you deal with when you're dealing with chip and seal streets. Yeah, it is, I
well,
mean.
I just noticed all the streets ain't like that. There's some of them have more erosion to the sides.
They might have better drainage from,
Drainage
it keeps
problem.
them, yeah.
Yeah, because if that maintenance would have been taken care of since date one, we probably wouldn't be in this predicament right now. Now we need a
And,
new road.
again, it's really not, it's not a maintenance issue with the edge of the streets. You can try to go back in and pack base along the edge of the road. It's gonna go away. There's no way to key it into what's existing there. It's either gonna slough off, be pushed off with the garbage trucks and the mail trucks and stuff like that. Everybody that drives, or people drive off to the edge to park.
Right.
Every trip over that edge just makes it weaker.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yes, that's the issue. We have some hills, some grade. There's a little bit of a crown to the road surface. So where the road meets the base on the edge of the road, it becomes a gutter. Water hydrology washes it out.
Right.
Between the pavement and the base on the shoulder. So I think what this gentleman's saying, if you push the base back, repair that before you pave it, would that help?
It won't stay.
Yeah.
It just won't.
I mean,
So is the
even if you
asphalt gonna
roll it,
fill that
I mean,
in?
like,
Yeah, and that base is weaker than the pavement surface, and the pavement surface is going away too. But it's just something that you have to deal with
But
the
didn't you
chip and
mention
seal
you could put
streets.
cement or something like that, just pour it with some kind of cement to keep it from eroding?
What
I
lot?
thought you mentioned that the last time.
A lot of people to alleviate that. Now, I haven't seen it done with chip and seal streets,
Just base,
but
the
with,
base itself.
hang on, with asphalt streets, a lot of cities will go and put just a concrete curb just at the same height as the road. It won't be a true curb that carries water in the gutter line. It's just a flat, like a mow strip. But it's a structural edge that keeps the road from deteriorating, keeps that edge intact. But what will happen is people will drive off the edge of the concrete curb, and then you'll have the same thing happening on that side.
On
And at
the
some point,
concrete.
that concrete curb is gonna start cracking and it's gonna fall apart. And granted, it'll take a lot longer to do so than an asphalt or chip and seal street, but at some point in time it will happen. And that's a lot of expense to go to keep that, keep the street edge intact.
I have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am.
It might be a stupid question.
No stupid questions here.
And I don't know who to ask, but I keep reading on social media, where the money is going. I see it's going for repairs, for the streets, for maintenance, etc. Is it gonna go like on hairdos? Is it gonna go like on sidewalks, like people say? I mean, I'm not saying if I'm against it or for it or whatever, I'm just curious, like how's the money gonna be allocated?
It's only going for streets and engineering. I mean, the design work, and that may be something that the mayor, we talk about with the mayor, perhaps, that budgeted money can be used to do all the design, and all 800,000 could go to the roads. Way to supplement things.
Exactly.
What we're trying to do is get as much road done for a least amount of money, that is what we perceived is affordable, but no, money can't be used for parks or city hall improvements. It has to be for roads. Has to be.
Sidewalks?
Well,
Is that roads?
technically, because it's in the ordinance, and then, I don't know if you came in a little bit later.
Yes.
There's the bond attorneys that put this together. We're not bond attorneys. I'm a finance person, he's the engineer. The bond attorneys use the generic language for roads. And in that language, it includes curbs, gutters, I mean, everything that is part of a road. That's not our plan. We don't have intentions. They could be, the mayor would be run out, the council would be run out, we would be run out if all of a sudden we started putting sidewalks instead of roads. This is a road project and solely a road project.
On top of that, let's say the bond passes and we design the roads and bid this project out and it comes in at $600,000, what happens then?
Then you can still use the balance for roads. Can't use it for anything else. So if it's voted for roads and it's approved and it comes in lower, it just would mean we're doing more roads until we get to the 800,000. Alternatively, if the bids came in at $1 million, then we will pare back the project to only do 800,000, because that's all the money we have. But it's for roads and roads only.
But where I was going with that, if the project came in at $600,000, the city could decide, hey, we're just gonna stop there. We're not gonna put any more obligation on our citizens. We're just
No,
gonna.
we would have already sold them.
You're-
So the
oh,
money,
you're gonna sell- okay, that's what I was asking.
the
So it's
money
all
is in
gonna
the
be
bank,
sold.
and it can only be used for roads.
Okay. All right, I wasn't aware that.
Well, we're not gonna split it out, it's just too expensive to split it up.
Okay.
So they'll get 800,000 and they'll use it for roads until they run out.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, assuming the bond passes and we receive the funding, we would take all of the funding, it would go into our account, and we can then invest that money in, just like we use
Tax pool or.
everything else. So we could earn money on that money before we're paying it out for the projects.
Correct.
Thank you.
But we don't get the 800,000, correct? Because there's payments we have to make to you guys.
Well,
And the attorneys.
We have, typically the way, nothing's been finalized because the bond issue hasn't been sold. Typically, the way we do it is we would sell them at a premium so that $800,000 is in your construction account and the cost of issuance are paid for by the purchaser of the bonds. Now, how does that happen? It happens with a slightly higher interest rate than the market, and we've calculated that in because we've run these numbers at 4% and we're in a 3% market. So the council will make the final decision. There's two ways to sell it. One's called a private placement, where you sell it directly to perhaps your depository bank, which is JP Morgan. JP Morgan buys them for their own account. And if we do a private placement, then the fees would come out of the private placement, the $800,000. If we do a offering, a public offering, and sell these bonds we would likely sell the bond for $8,050,000, and the $50,000 would cover all the costs, and $8 million would be put in your construction account. 800,000, I'm sorry. And so, again, we don't wanna make decisions until we know that a bond issue's been passed. But those are the two avenues. One would put, roughly speaking, $750,000 for construction. The other would put in $800,000 for construction. We would sell one for $800,000, take costs out of it. The other we would sell at a premium so that the purchaser that buys it at a premium pays all the costs, and $800,000 is deposited in the construction account. To be decided by council and, based off of a successful election.
So, from this $800,000, maybe 40% goes engineering and.
Oh, I don't.
No.
And designing.
No.
So,
So we
yeah.
don't know that either.
No.
We don't know how much money is gonna be implemented.
No, I think we know what generally what design costs are.
From the report, we provide an opinion of probable construction costs, and the total number that we had come up with was $730,000. Of that amount, $25,400 was engineering costs.
Engineering costs.
Yeah.
That's cheap.
So, by the time it's said and done, we don't know how we're gonna sell it, so we don't know how it's gonna be applied. If we do sell it for just the 800,000, we take the cost out of there for attorneys and your costs, and then the, expenses for the design.
Possibly.
also.
It might come out of the bond money, it might come out of the city's general budget.
So we don't know that either.
And that's a decision the city wants to make. If they feel like they wanna contribute that money out of the general fund or out of, say, their.
And that's one thing that we don't know how they gonna, supplement if they need any more money. We the last one to find out what's going on here.
Well, I mean,
Everything's being
nobody
done,
knows.
and then, yeah.
It's a
But you
decision
see,
for
right
later.
now, you touch that point, that if we need any more money, maybe from the money from the city to supplement, it can go ahead and.
Those are the
you know.
options, in other words.
Right.
And by that time, we don't know if our city taxes will go up again to make room for that cost. There's so many variables,
But
like you said.
there's, what we know is.
Small potatoes compared to the overall.
What we know is that the probable design costs were $735,000 roughly. Plus, that included the $25,000 for
Yeah,
engineering.
730 was included 25.4 for the engineering. That's what's on this.
So we've rounded it to 8 so that if we wanna go with all costs included, we still get this project completed. If we wanna do and sell them at a premium, then we can do more than these costs. We don't know what bids are. Until bids come in, we don't know what the cost of the material is. This is how cities operate and issue bonds and do construction projects for eternity. If bids come in too much, more than the money, then council and the engineer will have to decide what are we paring back. If we do better than that, then council and the engineer will decide what next road to do. But we can't read and we can't do a crystal ball. We don't know what's gonna happen.
I mean, yeah, everything is, that's a big serious idea. It sounds real good, promising here, but, and 2.4 miles of radius, I mean, it's like a bleeding a rock to get all that money.
That's why we're having an election.
And I don't know how much it's gonna grow because all the lots.
That's
have
why
been
we're having an
sold.
election.
That's why the
It's-
lots in the 2.4 miles have been sold. They're.
I don't know what 2.4 miles
They
means.
can resell.
Our area.
Not a whole lot.
Oh, the square miles, the area of town. Yes, sir?
There's just so many people.
Go up north and real. Go up north and real, sir. Go up north. Go up north. Or where all the snow is. Every 3 or 4 years they have to do the road.
I've been across the road for
I tell you what,
28
I
years.
pay $1,000 up in Indiana, $1,000 on my damn property taxes every damn year.
This
This
is a
is
town
cheap.
hall,
that-
this is a town hall meeting, isn't it? Is that an argument?
Let's go up north and real.
You're next. Yes, sir?
My question is, that has nothing to do with the road stuff, I came in late, my question is for the mayor. There are
Would you-
no, sir,
would you
there are,
step-
this is a bond meeting, this has nothing to do with city council.
Step forward, so.
Do
we want all the proposals on the bond meeting to pass?
You betcha.
Even the one for the via tax that we pay?
It's a separate issue.
No, that's right, that's right.
But sir, we're only talking, the meeting that we're in right now is strictly to talk about the bond. When that meeting's over and closed, then I could talk with you afterwards if you like. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have my question for the finance guy.
Go ahead.
My question was that the same question that lady asked a while ago. Who's gonna be in charge of the accounting of the money of the bond?
Your city auditor, you have an outside auditor, so they will do that.
So they'll be distributing the money as it's.
No,
going out.
that will be the city council. The money will be deposited into a construction account. It will be structured in a manner that can only be used for the project. And so that money, it can't be used for other purposes. People use it for other purposes, that's fraud, and people get in trouble. So it can only be used for the bond project that's approved by the voters.
That answers her question about the hairdo thing.
Well, I think she was being facetious about the hairdo.
Go ahead.
I hear a lot of pros, about the bond and, what are some cons? You're getting paid, right? You're getting
Yes,
a
ma'am.
check out of this money?
Well,
If
It's
it-
okay if you want,
if-
it's okay.
yes, ma'am.
If it passes.
We serve
So you're
at the
gonna-
cities.
You're gonna set it,
And we get
okay?
paid for that.
I understand you're gonna set it, okay, cause it's your businessman. What are some of the cons?
Well, the
for
biggest
this?
con is a tax rate increase.
Okay.
That you're going up, you know, and I don't know if you were here when we said it, it's 4.5 cents on your tax rate, which if your property is valued at $100,000 after exemption, that means you'll pay $45 a year in more taxes.
That's great.
That's
Sounds great.
in-
So that's like the biggest con?
I don't know of anything else.
Without exception,
Eighty-nine cents a week. There's never been that other.
What are some other little cons?
Well, that you don't live on the street that's being done, and that was discussed earlier. You have 27 miles worth of roads here?
29 and a half miles.
And we're getting 7 miles, roughly 6.5 miles done?
Almost 6 miles.
So, you know, not every road's gonna be done, but the theory is that's gonna free up more money, that if we don't do this, then all of your operational budget has to repair and go. This will free up money to do other roads over the next few years. But the only con I could really think of is you're paying $45 more on a $100,000 valued property.
And it's limited to the amount of, it can, cover.
It's only gonna be for streets, and it's, the tax rate can only be in place for as long as the bonds are outstanding, and you can only set the tax rate for what the value, for what the dollar amount needed. So our estimate is the annual debt service is gonna be $70,000. Based off your taxable value, that's about 4.5 cents on your tax rate. If the taxable value continues to increase, by law, the INS tax rate, that portion of your tax rate, has to come down. You can't keep a tax rate higher than what's obligated to cover the bonds.
You mentioned one of the cons is being not living on a street that's gonna be repaired, but when you pay county taxes, not everybody gets their road paved every year. You know,
Well,
so
I was trying to get to
It's
what's
the
the
same.
little drawbacks.
Yeah, it's
Those-
the same thing, I mean.
You're right.
Your road's not paved every year.
And, you know, if you don't, someone else said, I don't have children in school, and they're still paying taxes. It's
Didn't go
part
to the
of,
hospital last year,
what-
but I paid hospital.
what Greg said is it's part of living in a community, it's part of living in a city.
I just wanted to weigh it
Mhm.
and make
No, I'm trying
make
to-
a good decision.
I'm sure other people could tell you, some people may say, well, the people that are running the show are the wrong people to do this project. I mean, it's what we collectively have come up with is what we think is a good plan that's affordable, that can do as much of the project possible at reasonable rates. If someone said, we need to do all 29 miles, 28 miles, everything, well, that's gonna be $4.5 million or $5 million. Well, then your tax rate is gonna be 50 cents. Well, I don't think y'all would welcome us here very much if we were talking about a 50-cent tax rate, but all the roads are gonna be new. You know, so I mean, it's a give and take, and the council's trying to give you all the information to make a decision that collectively will be the right decision for the community.
But if you lived in San Antonio, if you gave us 50 cents on the tax rate, that would be a $6 cut. 6-cent cut.
Yes.
Theirs is 56 cents.
Thank you for sharing the cons. Yeah,
Mine
I wasn't trying to be negative, I was just trying to make, you know.
No, it's good, it's a good question.
For a little information, right, comparison with the city. If you want to, go to the end of Waterwood Pass, which is now right there where Priest Road is, and take a look across that intersection. Hello, San Antonio. They have incorporated it, folks. Now you can go over there and buy a lot and pay $1.60, $100 for a similar lot as you've got right here. Besides everything else they do, you paying a lot, and you're not getting it. You're not getting the advantage of everything you get. You're paying for that $1.60, $100, because all the parks are 25 miles away. Everything that the benefit to you in the city is 25 miles away. The nearest damn grocery store is 14.5 miles from this building. So please, have a little bit of community pride. A little bit of community pride. The longer you hold something off, if you have an old junker car and you don't put any money into it, but for 10 years, you've got a really junky car. But you can't put the roads off. You can't do it because your community is going to deteriorate as fast as the roads, and now you've got a problem you can't even control. So please, please, this city council is doing what they have come up with, a really great plan to do what needs to be done for the community, not for one small group, not for a bigger group, but for 4,500 people. 4,500 people. That's what this program is for. Please, give it some consideration. Nobody's making a nickel out of this. Nobody's making a nickel, and by golly, you can go to San Antonio and go to the movies, buy a tub of popcorn and a drink, and go sit down in a seat that has cost you about $8 to $10, and with a $5 bucket of thing, and one thing, if you took 2 kids with you, that's the increase in your tax increase right there. Please, 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 please. I'm not trying to push anybody, because I'm proud to see people from all sides at this meeting. I'm really proud to see it. But look at what's in this room. It's 1% of the population of this city sitting in this room right now. And you have to be proud of yourself, whether you're for or against, that you have the fortitude, the internal fortitude, to come here and be heard. To come here and be heard. But I'll tell you what, folks, I've seen it from the beginning, and I see it today. And we need what's being asked of us. Thank you.
You can see right here that there's a lot of empty seats right here, because there's not too many people. I mean, most of them people there out there trying to make a living, trying to earn. That means $40. That means an extra payment at the end of the year or at the end of the month, however they want to put it. Most of them people here, they're all retired. They can afford them 80,
Oh, crap.
cents, you know, or whatever, you know.
Oh, maybe they
Mr. Lopez, that token,
Yeah, you said bull crap.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, y'all need to, come on, realistically. Enough with the, everybody say their piece, everybody's adult here. Enough. Thank you.
we appreciate it, sir.
He's got a gun.
Yeah. I mean, it just, that comes to tell you that a lot of people, they probably wanna be involved, but unfortunately, they have to be at work. and-
Well, I'd argue the opposite. I've been doing this too long. People that are for it or against it, they don't want, because they're afraid someone's gonna say something and be mad, and they'll vote when they go to the ballot box, or they won't vote.
Yeah.
They wanna be home with their family. They don't wanna take a night away to learn, and that's why it's being videotaped.
And we all have our opinions.
Yeah, that's right.
And just because you're agreeing for the bond doesn't make you right. And
Right.
just because you're disagreeing with the bond doesn't make you wrong.
That's why-
Doesn't make you a naysayer, right?
That's why the ballot is
Because
private.
we have our opinions and we promote that opinion, of course.
When you go to the ballot,
But-
you're in there by yourself, and you do what you think is correct.
Exactly.
And
So it
that's,
doesn't necessarily mean
and that's what's
that
beautiful
because you're
about this
against
system.
it, that you're wrong, right?
If
For
it's
your
our opinion.
family, for your life, you're right.
It is your decision, and that's why it's a private ballot.
That's exactly right, and that's why everybody voices their opinion, and you shouldn't be talked down to because you're in the opposite side.
I haven't heard really, I thought it was a pretty respectable conversation. I think,
Well-
Mayor, I think we've answered everything. We're happy to stay.
Are there any more questions specifically about the road or the financing for the bond? We don't really need to get into
No.
discussions about right and wrong here because.
Well, I do have a question, only because it
Yes,
came up
ma'am.
at a previous meeting. Could you talk about core samples and their relevance to this project? Excuse me.
We have a
Excuse me.
question, folks, please.
Could you talk about core samples and their relevance to this project?
So where we're at right now is not the time to be looking at doing geotechnical work. Once the bond passes, that's when we would look at doing geotechnical work and look and see what kind of, get core samples to see what the base material looks like and see if there needs to be any addition to it. But really, that's kind of outside of what we're talking about because we're really talking about a resurfacing product. The project is just strictly resurfacing, it's not improving the base material.
And is that assuming that the base structure is sound?
Yes.
Okay.
And everything I saw driving around this evening, I would feel comfortable doing what we're doing.
Okay.
Yes.
But I think I've seen some new technology they're using. It's like a sonar machine that does, instead of doing a core, they put on the scene of the city using it. And it just boom, it shoots and it checks.
That's a different kind of geotechnical testing.
But it's pretty much the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No.
So what does it do?
It's called a falling weight deflectometer. If you're just, sounds like that's what you're describing. It's.
Yeah, I see them using it on the streets.
Yeah.
Shooting.
I'm not a geotechnical expert, but that gives you some value, but it's not what we look for designing bases.
I have a question for you. You said that you're filling in again?
Yes.
For the engineer, what is the name of that engineer?
Jared Mott, Jerod Mott.
Okay, thank you.
He is the one assigned to the city.
Thank you.
Anything else?
To the audience, I apologize for saying crap.
You said it again.
And I'm not politically correct.
It's pretty complicated.
I'm Rick.
Yep, pleasure, pleasure. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't, well, before I walk away with this, I'll give that back to you. And Mark. No, and thank you. Appreciate it. See if you've been through this before.
Hey, get your fingers off. I'm leaving it on.
Can I stand in front of the
You may.
He's an Italian, talking about something. Since I've been here before.
Yeah, they wanted to share with me. They should.
Maybe a little more above.
The boat needs your.
Hey, hi. You're being videotaped over there too.
So long, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Let us know.
As the chairman.
Enjoy visiting with y'all.
So, thank you very much, Craig, I appreciate it. Good job. Let me turn this off real quick.
Okay, I'm not bringing it.